So it turns out I made a huge mistake about learning Japanese. Not only was I way far off about learning language in general, I also was wrong about some technical aspects of how the Japanese language works on a fundamental level. If you're new to the channel, my name is Jay and I'm crazy about Japanese carpentry and structures, and my dream is to build a Japanese house of my own one day. And for a while, my time frame for doing this was about 10 years. And it turns out that lately this timeline has been reduced drastically to about 1 year. I've treated learning Japanese this entire time as like a background aspect instead of a critical component. Last night, I'm looking on YouTube as usual, right before I'm about to go to sleep, when I stumble along like a 1 hour video by this channel called Think Before Sleep, where he goes in depth, basically talking about the repercussions of what it would be like if you skip out on Japanese studies and actually attempt to live in Japan. Now, one of the major things that I got wrong about learning Japanese was the fact that I thought I could just focus on learning how to do the carpentry techniques and focus on, my actual job, which is I own a construction company here. And so for me, learning carpentry and learning the Japanese way to do carpentry was like what I was so excited and passionate to focus on. And what I got wrong was the whole time is I always thought that, my wife would just pick up the slack on, the bureaucratic stuff, the paperwork. She would help buy the property and I could just focus on doing the building stuff. And I kind of figured I didn't need language for that, but I'm definitely wrong and I'm feeling really bad about all this. I've been a lazy bitch about learning Japanese, and it sucks to realize I've definitely had my head stuck in the sand this entire time. And I always had the idea that learning Japanese would just kind of like rub off on me on the way. But learning a language as difficult as Japanese is not like moving to the south and subtly picking up the accent. You're not going to just have Japanese rub off on you. This is a type of thing that takes some serious grind and serious sweating it out. And I've been thinking about this all day. This is really, seeing this video last night has really fucked me up at work for like the whole day. I've been rethinking my entire life, how I've stuck my head in the sand and I didn't focus on learning Japanese at all. And, you know, I've been really thinking about what some of these reasons are. I feel like learning a language and skateboarding have a lot in common. And I never got too good at skateboarding, but I did it when I was younger. And if there's one thing you notice about skateboarding is that it's crazy hard. But one huge takeaway about learning skateboarding is the better you are at skateboarding, the more fun it is to do so. I'm going somewhere with this, so give me a second. I got an example. So when you're skateboarding, you can't do any tricks at all until you can ollie. If you can't get up in the air with the board, you literally can do almost zero tricks. Now, if you're skateboarding with someone that can do 20 tricks and the only thing you can do is an ollie and maybe a pop shove it, you are going to get bored of skateboarding way before the other guy that you're with. And that's because you're just going to get bored quicker. You can only do so many ollies and so many pop shove-its until you're like, all right, time to give it a rest. I've tried doing the classroom thing. I've tried self-study. But what nobody really tells you about when learning a language is the absolute slog it is going through the boring parts. Like when you're trying to learn numbers, days of the month, days of the week, these type of like basic structural assets that you literally can't move past until you learn, it is super dry. And for someone like me, it's like, it feels like you're just like grinding out the ollie over and over again. And you just want to get to the fun stuff. You want to start talking, you want to start doing stuff. But even if you had great grammar and some good casual conversational ability, if you didn't have your numbers hammered, you could make a serious mistake that actually mattered in real life if you did not have your Japanese skill level to a foundation where you're not going to mess up the number for 1012 or 10,012. So you need to really make sure you have your foundation dialed. Now, this video that I watched last night basically went over, the fact that there's a lot of foreigners in Japan that kind of stick to their English circles and they don't learn anything past, the basics. And for myself, I didn't really realize that there's something called like a dialogue tree, which is like when you're in a video game and there's only a certain amount of things you can say in the dialogue. And that's like the basics of language learning. And just learning a little bit of a dialogue tree and being able to get through some daily day in Japanese gives you a real Dunning-Kruger effect where you actually feel like you know enough to get by and then you know more than you do and then you kind of don't put much effort into it. But if anyone tries to speak outside of the dialogue tree, like, you're cooked. You can't follow along. You can't have a spontaneous conversation. I just told my wife about, talking about this on video, and she immediately pulls out her phone and starts going to this thing called Gaikokujin Mondai, which is like foreigner problems tag on some social media, and all of a sudden my wife turns into like an Asmongold show for 6 minutes of just showing me clips of crazy foreigners who like committed a crime or something, and they're like trying to talk to the police, but they're not trying to talk to them. You know what I mean? They're like trying to get out of talking to the police because they're, displaying their incompetence in Japanese. And after like 6 minutes of being traumatized by these clips, I was literally like, hey, what does this have to do with like language learning? And she just looked right at me and said, if you don't learn enough Japanese, you're in their group. And I'm like, yo, I do not want to be in that group. I would like to have enough competency to get by in life. Now, the next point that I want to bring up about learning Japanese, which is a major oversight on my part, is the fact that I have this dream to become a Japanese carpenter, and I love the Japanese, techniques and the way to build, and I'm just like so passionate about all that. Like that, I can spend hours on that and not get bored. But if I don't have a competent level of Japanese, I'm going to create a permanent ceiling on what I can learn on that topic if my Japanese isn't good enough. If I ever have a dream in my life where I could actually get taught by a real sensei with real, decades of experience in this stuff, and take my career and take myself to like my final form as a carpenter, that's impossible to do without Japanese. You literally can't do it. I also feel like a huge bitch because I have absolutely no excuse to not have learned way better Japanese up until now. I have a 3-year-old with kids' books in the house that I could be putting effort towards. And because of the fact that I own my own construction company and I work by myself, my days are long. They're 14-hour days. I'm providing for my family. So I have like a sense of pride about what I'm doing. And I use that as a crutch to say, well, I'm doing so much. I don't have time to, you know, I don't have time for Japanese. I'm doing so much. I'm carrying the family. I'm running a company. I'm 14 hours a day, 7 days a week. But somehow I still find time to scroll on YouTube at 10 o'clock at night. What the fuck am I doing? What have I done to myself? Now that my timeline of moving to Japan and kind of starting this project has turned from a 10-year dream to like a 10-month sprint, I've had to get hit with a ton of bricks by this video and realize the bed that I made and that I'm going to have to lie in it. So the only thing I can do now is start grinding, but it definitely feels like I'm trying way too late in the game. And for something like learning a language, you don't just start grinding 8 hours on Saturdays to try to catch up. It literally doesn't even work like that. The best way to learn a language is to just put in that 30 minutes every day, that 1 hour a day. I should be reading to my daughter at night, but I'm in Japanese, but I'm not. I'm fucking awful. I mean, there's 2 levels of books here. One's Daruma-san, and he basically is like a baby book. And this book teaches you like the basic, Daruma-san's glasses. You know, this is Daruma-san. And then we have Baba Papa, which is like a kid's book still, but if you look at the text, it's a lot smaller. It's more of a story. The truth is, I'm on Daruma-san level now and not Baba Papa. Like, I can probably get through Baba Papa, but like, my daughter would probably literally lose interest in me reading to her Baba Papa at how slow I'd have to go to pronounce out the hiragana. It wouldn't even sound like a good story time. At first, I used to get frustrated when I would try really hard to think of a phrase in Japanese that I wanted to say to my wife, and then after I mustered it all up and kind of like played it a couple times in my head and then went over and say it to her, she responded to me in like quick, natural Japanese, and I would get annoyed and I'd be like, bro, like, I'm a learner, like I'm trying to say this to you and you just come back at me with like lightning fast turbo natural Japanese, and it would make me mad a little bit, honestly. I'd be like, dude, why can't you just slow it down to like help me learn? And basically what she said to me was, if you talk to somebody, like this is how they're going to respond. Japanese is one speed. Like I don't even feel like I'm saying it fast. Like I'm not talking fast. It just sounds fast to you because you're not used to hearing the sounds. So definitely the one thing that I would recommend, and the one thing that I definitely need to work on, is just listening. Since I've been thinking about this all day, I kind of realized something that happened last year in Japan, which I felt really awful about after the fact, but more just left out in the moment. I've been to Japan every year for the last 5 years. I've been married for 5 years, and I'm kind of over the touristy stuff. And to be honest, like one of the most fun things for me to do is to have dinner with my father-in-law and his brother, Otosan and Ojisan. And we go over to Uncle's house and basically make dinner, and they watch baseball, which I'm not even into baseball, but just eating and having a couple of beers with them is really great for me because, I live with my wife and daughter and I run a business all day long. And don't get me wrong, I love my wife and daughter, but I basically live in a house with all women. So when I go to Japan to get to chill in the tatami room and have a couple of beers and watch some sports feels pretty good. I really vibe with that. And one night we're watching TV and the baseball game was over and they had this comedy show on. If you live in Japan and watch TV, maybe you've seen this show before, but the comedy show was basically like 5 or 6 comedians, and there's all these pillows, and the comedians are all in a line. And, one of the guys, the host, will like say something like a prompt, and then all the comedians have to spit out like a one-liner joke. And whoever spits out the best joke, they get rewarded with another pillow. So like the guy who's had 6 good jokes, good zingers, he's sitting on 6 pillows. And the guy who said 2 good jokes is sitting on 2 pillows. And Oji-san, uncle, he's a great guy, but he's very serious. And you can't really tell if you're like, if you're on his good side, you know what I mean? He's just a very serious guy. Not in a bad way, but he just kind of has that demeanor. And for the first time, I'm watching this show with the dude, the comedians on the pillows, and the dude lets loose a zinger, and I look over, and Oji-san's face is glued to a smile like I had never seen before. And it was in that moment I'm like, yo, I really wish I knew what this dude was saying right now. Like, it was all I wanted was to be able to understand that joke. And the fact that the jokes were one-liners made me feel like if I had even put in a little bit of a base level effort, like I would have got that and I'd probably be laughing. I mean, the the look on the comedian's face was pretty much funny enough for me to laugh at. I could only imagine if I knew what he was saying. He might have even been roasting women and we could have all had like a good guy's time laugh, but I wasn't included in it. So what's really shitty is I've spent the last year not learning Japanese and just focusing on getting money and planning the trip and planning the move and looking at the properties and focusing on every single aspect except speaking Japanese. What am I thinking, bro? Like, I should have been doing this the entire time. And now I'm going to have to somehow figure out how to just psych myself into like a brand new mindset because I have to get this done. Like, there's no way I can just skip out on it after seeing that video last night, like, and seeing exactly what I don't want to become, which is a foreigner that's stuck in English and I'm just looking to my wife 24/7 for aid. Like, that ain't gonna be me, bro. So I don't know. Goals: be able to read Baba Papa. I gotta stop watching YouTube at night and just buckle down on learning this shit because all I've done is basically hold myself back from the exact thing that I want to do by sticking my head in the sand and not putting the grind in. Anyways, I've been feeling like shit about this all day. Don't end up like me and make all these plans to do everything you want to do in Japan and fuck build a family that's Japanese and then skip out on the actual part of learning Japanese. That's about it. Peace.